quarter's edition of the Esop Sofa. Today we'll be focusing on hot topics in employee share ownership based to a large degree on articles from the Newspad. And I will be your host for today, Darren Smith from YBS Share Plans, the National Sales Manager. It's the first time ever I've been let loose to chair the meeting. So normally I have the wonderful Michael doing that. So today I've got lots of screens open, so please do bear with me. I'd like to take this moment to thank the generosity of the FS Club and the ESOP members as well, and the sponsors who allow us to range so widely in our subjects of interest. Today's format, I will have some wonderful guests on my sofa who I'd like to introduce shortly. But there's first of all a few technical things for you to get through. On the right-hand side, you'll see go to webinar information. Here, you can ask me questions. Please do ask questions. It's much better when you all get involved and ask lots of questions and try challenge these wonderful guests of mine on the sofa today. On the panel, I have, first of all, Jonathan Sturman from Kier. He's an issuer with every share plan in the world going, I believe, Jonathan. So he'll have lots of examples he can share with us today. We have Jennifer Rudman of Equinity, who manages lots of different plans, sees everything, and she has been on many a sofa in the past and can answer lots of questions. So let's challenge them both. And finally, Matthew Hunter of Tapestry, who can come from a legal side on many questions. So please do get your questions to them. I always say, if we can challenge them that they can't answer it on here today and they have to go away, you've done your job as a question. That's superb. But we will take it away if we can't answer it and come back to you. Okay? So let's get straight to it. First off, since we last spoke on the sofa back in February, there's been a budget. There's been a lot of discussions around the budget. Last time we talked about the CGT review. We didn't know which way it was going to go. A lot of the administrators, including ourselves and Jennifer, really helped support Esop Centre and challenge the OTS recommendations. Where have we got with that, Jennifer? Have we seen a result since the last meeting?
Yeah, well, thanks, Darren. Yes. Well, following the OTS review, there were concerns regarding employee share plans and CGT, and the Esop Centre highlighted concerns undertaking lobbying and writing to the Chancellor. And this appears to have paid off, at least for the time being anyway. One key area of concern was that the capital gains tax rates could be changed to levels closer to income tax rates. As a table, oh, we haven't got the slide up at the moment, but
no, we're having some technical issues, so we'll just have to talk through them today, Jennifer.
That's okay. So the standard capital gains tax rates remained unchanged at the 10 and 20% levels, so safe for now, though it will be interesting to see whether there are further reviews and what happens in future years. But a second area of concern was that there would be a reduction in the annual exempt amount to ensure that it operated effectively as an administrative de minimis, rather than as a relief, with an exemption between, say, £2,000 and £4,000 per tax year. So with average gains at SAY maturity in the region of about £6,000 and sometimes a lot more, more employees would have had to have considered the impact of CGT. The annual exemption amount, however, will remain at £12,300 until the end of the 2025-2026 tax year. So this does provide a degree of certainty for SAY share plans launched last year, so in 2020, where they have possibly got very low option prices. So if they're maturing in 3 to 5 years' time, there could be some exceptional gains. So it's good that the capital gains tax remains at £12,300 for the moment.
No, you're spot on there. I know we talked about it a lot on the last sofa. It was a real concern. Was there anything else you were going to add there? Sorry, Jennifer.
Only some of the other figures that came out of the budget. So the ISA limits as well, which help when there are gains, that's remaining at £20,000 for this tax year as well. So that was good news.
Brilliant. No, thank you very much. We're going to focus on the next Newspad brief back in July around EMI. So I'll get a specialist around EMI on the next SOFA as well, so we can answer any questions around that. Then, Jonathan, from an issuer's perspective, what impact would the change in CGT, if it does come about in future, what impact do you feel that would have on your plans?
Yeah, I think particularly with ShareSave, it's all about simplicity, isn't it? And sort of the CGT isn't something you have to sort of focus on as part of the communications. Yeah, it's very much in the brochure towards the back as a this is a potential issue. To be honest, you haven't really got to worry about it. And if you do, it's a good sign, because obviously you've made a killing on the ShareSave, and it's something we can worry about at maturity. I mean, and particularly, we've got a diverse workforce. A lot of them are not office based, so communication is tricky at the best of times. And with ShareSave, we really put the emphasis on it's really easy, it's really straightforward. There's no big tax issues you've got to worry about. So that's one of our key selling points. So I think if the CGT issue changed and became more of a fundamental issue for ShareSave, I think it could have quite a big big impact on our take up, just because I think a lot of our take up comes from the fact that it's really easy to explain and it's easy to understand. I mean, we've got about 3,000 employees in ShareSave, and they're saving on average, across all our plans, the average savings is about £95 a month. So it's a decent amount going in. We know for a lot of our employees, it's probably their only savings vehicle they're using. So we do what we can to really push ShareSave and make it one of these things where it's a no-brainer to sign up to. So I think from our perspective, anything which would add a layer of complication or difficulty to that is something that is best avoided.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Jonathan. I think it brings in more of a complication on maturity when people are celebrating making those gains, and all of a sudden there's some new information that they've got to take on board and really understand. So there's not just the financial education up front, it's also at the back end. So that's where the comms come in really importantly. But the good news is we've got a few more years, Grace. So fingers crossed we'll keep fighting that as an industry, as we strongly believe the right thing is to have those capital gains allowance a lot higher, so it doesn't impact on the people making the £2,000, £3,000 profit, which is their only CGT in that year. So no, thank you very much, Jonathan. And Matthew, have your clients been concerned? Have they raised any concerns around the CGT and the latest budget announcements?
Yeah, so we had a few clients raise concerns, and Jennifer and Jonathan have already talked about one of those, which was the initial concerns relating to the annual CGT allowance. The revenue needs to increase their tax take to offset the increased spending due to COVID. And there were concerns that share plans were being targeted. So in particular, the comment from the Office for Tax Simplification that they questioned the cost effectiveness of tax advantaged plans, so SIP and ShareSave in particular, caused some concern, with clients worrying that this would encourage the government to scrap or reduce the tax benefits. And helpfully, the OTS clarified back in November 2020, shortly following the publication of that review, that it wasn't their intention to disadvantage or threaten tax advantage or employee plans. And we also heard this clarification from the OTS at a presentation towards the end of January this year. And those clarifications should hopefully give clients some comfort that all employee tax advantage plans will be safe from future CGT changes. But that said, these are only informal clarifications at this point, and it's yet to be seen if we get any more detail on this and how the government might respond in relation to SIPs and SAYEs. The outlook's probably less positive for growth share style plans, where those plans might have attracted CGT treatment at the moment. We might see a movement in the boundaries with such plans becoming taxable as income, or at least being taxable at rates closer to income rates. So that's one to look out for.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And give us a really good overview of what administrators are seeing, advisors, and also issuers with regard to that. Now, since the last Newspad and our last Esop Sofa, there's been the Esop Centre Awards, and we have got Jennifer on the sofa today, who's had a number of clients with a few wins. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the winners and what they won it for?
Yeah, so yes, we did have a number of our clients win. I'm a real great supporter of the awards, by the way, as I think it provides an absolutely great opportunity to step back and have a think about what we've achieved or what our clients have achieved over the last year. So BT was one of the winners. They have 106,000 employees in 53 countries, and they were highly commended in the Best International All-Employee Share Plan category, as well as winning the Best Use of Technology. So for a whole variety of reasons, there have been an increase in companies offering free shares to the employees. BT launched its free share plan called Your Share. So BT's chief executive, Philip Jansen, announced that it was BT's vision for all employees to have a share in the company, and their new share program gave employees free shares under their existing UK SIP, and for overseas employees the free shares were offered under a conditional share award. So the Esop judges felt that BT was going that extra mile, had achieved truly global parity with its plans and employee participation. And BT's main good use of technology was its impressive integrated weave across that new plan, along with all the other plans that it has. Another winner with Marks and Spencer's, they won the Best Share Plan Communication Award for their ShareSave 2020 plan. The communications made an impact, the judges said. Visuals were good, and it was tied in with their branding. And this is what I like what they said. It said the key info pings out. So I think it's bringing out some of the kind of key points in a very visual way. So overall, it was an extraordinary year, and I think that the winner that stands out is Daily Mail and General Trust, who won the Best Share Plan Adaptation to the COVID Crisis for its salary substitution plan. The judges felt it was a worthy winner as it was doing something innovative and specifically COVID related. The main share plan objective was to preserve the company's working capital. So the plan involved a temporary reduction in pay of up to 26% for 3 months for employees earning more than approximately £40,000. The full value of this salary reduction was then substituted for a conditional award of DMGT shares. So this was awarded last year, and the plan has since vested. It vested in January, with a gain being made as the share price did actually rise during that period. And we were also really pleased to see that Liv Garfield, the group CEO of Severn Trent, won the Outstanding Company Leader category for the way that she personally promotes share schemes to employees. So thanks for letting us talk about that, Darren.
No, brilliant. No, that's great. There's some amazing plans that you're talking about there. It sounds really interesting. Now, me and Jonathan have been at awards recently, in recent years, and we've had to learn, you know, what it's like to lose your Oscar and still clap and smile when the camera comes to you. So I know it's a touchy subject, Jonathan. I won't come to you, and we won't talk about awards. But let's go back to the little thing called lockdown. What have been your biggest challenges? There's a lot in Newspad over the last few months about challenges that people have seen in lockdown. What has been your biggest challenges at Kier?
Yeah, I mean, our concern is we furloughed a lot of staff, and we also had pay reductions for sort of the middle and sort of senior grades over a 3-month period, and some of them are quite hefty. So our concern was, like you say, yeah, what would be the impact on our share schemes? And as sort of part of the communications, we made sure everyone was aware of, particularly with ShareSave, the ability to take the payment holidays and the 12 months, the extension to 12 months and so on. But we monitored it quite closely, and we found that actually, there wasn't any particular spike at all in either cancellations or people taking payment holidays. So it very much sort of stayed in sort of the normal bounds. And we obviously also put in some sort of extra well-being support around that side. What we did do was we delayed our normal sort of our share save award cycle, and also our long-term incentives for the higher grades. They're both pushed back. They both normally get awarded in October time, and we pushed them back to the end of the year for the LTIs and into end of January for share save. And particularly around the LTIs, that enabled us to take stock of the performance conditions that should be attached to the 3-year plans, and sort of and see how things are, how the dust was settling as such towards the end of the year, and then we're able to actually come out with a proper set of performance conditions, which will be something we can look at in 3 years' time to see how the vesting goes. What was interesting is we were quite concerned with share save and the invitation, which was delayed, I said, to the end of January, how that would impact on take up, because we were concerned that people would have less disposable cash and so on and so forth. But actually, we found take up was really good. It was higher than we were expecting, and the fact that the company's been through some difficult times for the last couple of years, so the share price is low. That probably helps. So people are sort of seeing an opportunity. But we thought the higher take up is actually probably quite a good indication that the employees think there's a decent future, A, post COVID, and B within the company, so they'll put the money into the share save plan.
Definitely, and with the CGT level staying the same, hopefully in 3 years' time you'll have some very happy employees. Fingers crossed. Definitely. One of the big questions we've seen recently, and I'm sure there'll be people in the audience asking questions around this. It was in Newspad as well. It's around ESG. I've seen it on a number of advisory panels where Matthew's spoken really eloquently about it as well. But can you, Matthew, can share with us what you were seeing with your clients and executive pay outcomes being more commonly linked to meeting ESG targets?
Yeah, so ESG is definitely the trend of the day. We're seeing movement in the industry towards linking ESG measures, so environmental, social and governance measures, to pay outcomes. When we talk about linking pay to ESG measures, we are talking about linking the calculation of remuneration outcomes, either when calculating a bonus or as part of a long-term incentive plan, to the satisfaction of measures and metrics that are linked to ESG issues and initiatives such as climate change and workforce and board diversity. Last year we conducted our annual FTSE 100 review, where we look at the annual reports of the FTSE 100, and we conducted an analysis of what companies had disclosed regarding ESG and pay. We found that 77 companies in the FTSE 100 appeared to have some link between ESG targets and executive pay to widely differing extents. There was a lot of data, so I can just give you a few of our key findings. Out of those 77 companies, 42 had a specific weighted ESG target, so a very clear ESG target, and 35 had a general reference to ESG, which might have been either as part of a wider scorecard for determining outcomes, or as a general ESG underpin, so where there might be, or including where there might be some kind of committee discretion to adjust an award where an ESG baseline measure hadn't been hit. Social measures out of the ESG, the S, mostly focusing on employee and customer metrics such as employee engagement and customer satisfaction, were the most commonly incorporated type of measure that we found, with more than 60% of companies using some form of social measure. We found that environmental metrics were used by actually less than a third of companies at the moment that had an ESG link to pay, with 12 instances of measures that specifically related to climate change and 25 instances that related to environmental measures or other environmental measures, but there might be a bit of an overlap there. We've had 22 instances of gender diversity measures, but only 2 instances of measures referring to ethnic diversity. So, both of those in terms of gender diversity and ethnic diversity, really hot topics at the moment. But it's interesting that at the moment there's been a lot of focus on gender diversity. ESG targets will still, we found, still far more commonly used to calculate annual bonuses than LTIP payouts, although we expect that trend of including ESG targets in the LTIP to develop, particularly in relation to long-term environmental and diversity targets that align with the firm's longer-term or company's longer-term strategy. And we expect that going forward, more and more companies will look to introduce ESG measures alongside their usual financial measures when calculating pay.
Brilliant. And Jennifer and Jonathan, in terms of ESG, is there anything that you're seeing with your clients or you're looking to in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think we haven't got anything directly at the moment. I mean, we're a construction infrastructure company, so sort of health and safety targets are baked into, particularly around the bonuses. And if those targets are missed, there's no payout. Depending, even if the other elements would pay out. So I think there will be a natural progression to it in the future. And I think very much with Kier, because we've had, a difficult couple of years, all of the focus and all of the targets have been around the turnaround metrics on the financials. But I think once we get into a more stable position, then I think it clearly will be an issue, because actually it's more and more of an issue in our sector, and so it's something which all companies will have to navigate towards.
Brilliant. Well, I was having a mild panic then, just so you know, because everything just crashed on me. So I'm glad you could answer that question. I was thinking, where's my storyboard gone? No, so I know the next question we were looking into is, corporate actions went quite quiet, Jennifer, in 2020, but obviously it seems to be raising its head again, 2021. What are you seeing at this moment in time?
Well, yes, you're right. There were very few corporate actions and IPOs in the first half of 2020. We've got a specialist corporate action team, and they went through a period between about February and May last year where there were no corporate actions in planning at all, and that is absolutely extraordinary. It did pick up towards the second half of 2020, and even now in the first 3 months of 2020, we've worked on as many tasks as we did throughout the whole of 2020. So yeah, it's definitely picked up again now. And the 2 types of corporate actions that are quite popular at the moment: rights issues, which are accounting for about 30% of the work, closely followed by scheme of arrangements. Other corporate actions that we're working on, demergers and open offers. So in addition to all of these corporate actions, the number of IPOs has also increased now, and the busy period is likely to continue. And it was interesting, the figure that Tapestry have just highlighted, when they said it's been a big week for corporate activity on the London Stock Exchange, with transactions announced on the 13th and 14th of April with a combined value of over 3.5 billion. So, yep, definitely picked up again now.
Brilliant. Wow, no, that's a great overview. And then, Jonathan, I've moved jobs since I used to manage your account back in 2018. I think there was a rights issue. I've been hearing noises in the market recently about Kier with another potential equity raise. What do issuers need to be aware of when it comes to corporate actions? Anything they should really be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, I could spend hours and hours and hours banging about this project. We've had 2 rights issues in the last 5 years. One well received by shareholders, the other much less so. And like you say, we've made sort of market announcements that we're looking, potentially at another equity raise. I mean, and it can be quite complicated for the share plans, depending on the type of sort of corporate action or equity raise you're looking at. And I mean, and it's absolutely essential that you've got your lawyers, you've got your corporate advisors, and you've got your share plan provider. So and we use YBS at Kier, but you've got to have them all absolutely on the same page, because as much as the work gets done beforehand, before there's any announcement, to make sure everything's set up and ready to roll, as it is during when the announcement is made, and then during the relatively short period thereafter, when the thing's actually in motion, until until you come to completion. And within sort of the different plans that we have, we tend to find the share option plans, so our LTIs and share save, they're relatively straightforward, because what you tend to do, particularly with the rights issue, where you're gonna bring out a pile of new shares, which is going to dilute everyone else, and it's going to hammer the share price. So particularly, with share save and with LTIs, you're looking to put the participants in a no-win, no-loss situation after the event. So with share save, for example, you use a formula which calculates sort of the theoretical X rights value and the price and everything else before and after the event. And you'll adjust the number of options that someone holds up, and you'll adjust the option price down. So that it should be, everything has been equal. When it's all done and dusted, they're in the same position value-wise. And a similar thing with your LTIs, you'll adjust the number of shares held. You then get into secondary issue with LTIs around performance conditions, which is obviously a much more difficult thing to adjust, because it's not a formula that you can use, is it? You're then looking at your RemCo advisors and everyone else to come up with an adjusted some targets at the end. The biggest issue we see is around SIP, because with SIP, your employees that are in SIP are, or can be treated as the same as the shareholders for for a rights issue, for example. So they can have options. Do they sell the rights that they're giving as part of the rights issue? They have a value. Do they sell them all for cash? Do they sell some to buy some new shares? Can they put their own money in to buy new shares? So it can be quite complicated, because you tend to have very short timescales with these things, and you get into issues around SIP with the banking regulations around where the cash has got to go. You've got issues around the SIP trustee, because it's the SIP trustee that will make the instruction to the company share registrar, and if it all comes together, so it's all perfectly doable. But like I say, for my best bit of advice is, make sure you've got everyone on the same page, particularly the lawyers, that they know exactly what they're doing. You've got to get the communications out in an understandable format, not completely legalese, and make sure your share plan operator and your SIP trustee and so on are all geared up for it.
You're spot on. I used to have hair, didn't I, when before your rights issue last time, Jonathan, I think.
I have much more rules though.
Yeah, I think my big piece of advice on share incentive plans when it comes to rights issues is, if you can get it in the rules that they do tail swallowing, that makes it much more simple to communicate to the SIP employees. They naturally just carry on, because the majority of the SIP employees won't have share ownership outside the plan. So keeping it as simple as possible. And we found that when we do it within the plan, and they just have a new shareholding, it's much easier to explain. So no, thank you very much for that. Just to the audience, just remember you can send your questions over to us. Anything around the budget, ESG, anything you want to ask Jonathan as an issuer as well, or Jennifer as administrator, please feel free to ask any questions as well, just burning questions that you do have. What I'll go on to now is, it's AGM season upon us. Matthew, can you give us an update on investor expectations around COVID-19 and what firms should be thinking about?
Yeah, so with so many AGM notices going out each day now, many companies will have already considered investor expectations, or should have, and decided on what they intend to bring out to shareholders. Each investor and investor body will be looking for different things, and we have seen various updates to guidance and expectations relating to COVID and executive pay ahead of the AGM season. So companies will need to focus on the relevant guidance and expectations that apply to their investor body and key investor organisations that they work with. Some of the key themes throughout the guidance and expectations that we've seen, from the Investment Association, ISS, Glass Lewis, some of the key themes have been that investors generally do not want to see companies adjusting the performance conditions for in-flight bonus awards or LTIPs. For example, they don't want to see a company making a performance condition easier where COVID has meant that it would otherwise be harder to achieve. That's a general trend. Investors generally don't want to see companies compensating executives with higher remuneration opportunities for 2021 to make up for lost opportunities due to the impact of COVID on pay in and across 2020. Investors generally don't want to see, or generally want to ensure, that executive pay outcomes align with the experience of the company, its shareholders, and the wider workforce. So if there was no dividend, or if government support and or redundancies were required, investors are unlikely to be happy with large bonuses for executives. So, for example, the Investment Association said that if a company has raised additional capital from shareholders, required government support through the furlough or job retention schemes, or has taken government loans, they will not be expecting annual bonuses to be paid unless there are truly exceptional circumstances. And investors are also keen for more granular disclosure and transparency on a range of aspects relating to executive pay, including clear justifications on the approaches taken. So those are the kind of key themes that we will see being played out during this AGM season.
And have you seen any pushback from the investors?
Yeah, so on those themes, we have seen some of those playing out for a few UK listed companies so far during the 2021 AGM season, either at the AGM or in relation to their proposals. So I'm not going to name and shame anybody, but there are a couple of examples that I can give. So one company received criticism from a number of investor bodies with recommended votes against and red top in relation to a proposal to pay nearly £1 million in bonuses to the CEO. And the pushback came from the fact that there was a sharp fall in share price, and the company had taken millions in government support during the pandemic. They'd furloughed staff and had gone to shareholders to raise emergency cash. And so this is an example of where the proposed executive bonuses just didn't align, or the view was that they just didn't align with the shareholder and wider workforce experience over the last year, and where there was, I think this was a quote, where there was a material disconnect between the bonus outcomes and company performance. And another company that had gone to the AGM and actually received a vote against of more than 30% in relation to the pay proposals, that was a proposal that included the possibility of the CEO receiving up to £65 million at the top end, with several investor bodies recommending votes against. As with the other example, investors were concerned with the size of the potential awards, given that the company had relied on government support, furloughed the majority of their staff, had been closed for the most of the pandemic, and had suffered a falling share price. So again, just another example of where proposed executive bonuses just didn't align with that shareholder and wider workforce experience. And you can see how these points, these two examples, tie into what the investors had said ahead of the AGM season would be their expectations. They said they don't like it, and they've voted against or recommended votes against. I suspect there will be a few more companies receiving this kind of pushback for similar reasons over the next month or so. But it's just one to look out for.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Jonathan assures me that he's not that example there, although that £1 million bonus means he's going to have to retire another year later, I believe, Jonathan, isn't it? No, I'm sure it's not Jonathan. Brilliant. So we've got our first question. It's around comms during the last year. Jennifer, are you seeing any clients switch it up and use any new techniques for engaging their employees with the new challenge of no face-to-face and budgets being slashed?
Well, Marks and Spencer's is a good example, and they won the communication award, and it's kind of typical of what's happening. It's a lot more email communication, whether it's to work or to home, and it's using things like microsites to make sure that information is accessible online. And in the kind of bite-sized chunks that employees like to see. So not great big, huge, long reams of information, but more bite-sized things that ping out and give you the key information. So it's definitely around trying to get rid of paper and doing it as much online and via email as possible. And I think one of the things that M&S found is that you can actually move to that, save a lot of costs. And I think they reduced their paper going out at their launch by about 75%. So I think that's kind of typical of what's going on at the moment.
And brilliant. I know, Jonathan, you've been looking at comms, every year, really. What improvements can you make? And you've gone down from the big brochureware that used to go out to every employee to just that one pager. Now you've got the biggest challenge of you don't have everyone's email address necessarily. So, how have you found that?
It's difficult because not all of our employees, a significant proportion of our employees do not have, or do not use a work email address, and and their day-to-day work don't need access to a computer. So I think but what we are seeing is, like you say, we're moving very much away from the larger brochure down to a single page letter with obviously their reference details on, but also with links through to a microsite or something similar on sort of that angle. And also I think the fact that because there's been much more of a move to sort of virtual team meetings and all those sort of things over the last year or so, we've been able to, with our sort of ShareSave comms, sort of dip into those and say, actually, rather than having to drive all the way to Outer Mongolia or wherever we are, to do a team meeting, we can actually say, great, we'll have 5 minutes on your team meeting, and we'll log in with Teams, and and that works really well.
Yeah, I used to love our Outer Mongolia meetings, Jonathan, back in the day. They were always quite fun. Okay, and the last question is to Matthew, and it's around, what are your clients asking? What are the challenges that you're coming up against outside of ESG and AGM season? Is there any themes that you're seeing that you're getting asked frequently?
So lots of companies, I think during 2020, for a number of companies, they kind of stuck to what they had. I think there was a slowdown generally in terms of new plans up and towards the end of the year, when towards the end of last year was extremely busy, going into the start of this year with new plans where maybe companies had put their plans on hold, those kind of things, lots of due diligence. So in terms of the general trends, I think there was a lot of what companies had focused on in terms of new plans, real focus on due diligence. That's probably just finished. I think the focus now that companies are looking at is how can they engage with their wider workforce to get that employee engagement using their share plans. And we're doing a lot of work with clients in terms of evaluating or looking to restructure or replace their all-employee programs globally to see how maybe the share price is lower. They want to get the employees engaged again post-COVID. What kind of vehicles or tools can we use to do that? So there's been a lot of work in terms of thinking about, okay, for next year, what kind of global all-employee plans could we put in place? Is our current one still fit for purpose? Is there a new model that we can use? So less of a focus on the kind of new exec plans, new due diligence for this year, and really just that focus on getting that wider employee engagement globally using your all-employee programs.
Definitely, we're definitely seeing that globally. There's been, I think I mentioned on the last sofa that we're having clients who maybe have 3 or 4 people in their jurisdiction, and they still want to invite them to a share plan, all inclusivity. So that's really good to see. I guess actually there's just one last question around the Irish plans. Jennifer, what are you seeing around the Irish approved plans? Obviously now with Brexit, I'm going to have to give you a minute to give me an answer, but it's a great question I've just been asked here. So can I put that over to you?
Yeah, very, very, very topical. So approved Irish plans. So with Brexit, the Irish government made a key change to safeguard existing plans that are with Barclays and YBS to make sure that any existing plans can continue. But with Barclays and YBS now saying that they're unable to be a savings carrier for new plans, obviously clients have been looking to see what they should be doing. And so we've been having discussions about whether or not they should be launching an unapproved SAYE plan, maybe under their international SAYE plan rules. And so there's quite a lot of those discussions going on at the moment. We've had one client already who has launched an unapproved Irish plan this year. So we were really, really interested to see what impact there was on take-up. And it was really good to see that take-up actually increased from 40% to 60% in that one plan. Now, obviously, that is not because it's become an unapproved plan, but because of the impact on share prices at the moment, and that particular plan launched with a lower option price than previous years. But I think that the key point to take away from that is that even if you haven't got an approved Irish plan, having an alternative unapproved SAYE plan can still provide benefits to employees, and employees will see that and will still join.
Brilliant. And we've seen an increase as well. It's amazing that take-up's gone up on a number of the Irish unapproved plans. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much for your quick answer there, Jennifer. All that's left for me to say is to say if anyone who's out there would like to be on the sofa in future months, we're going to do these quarterly. The next one is July the 13th. Please do get in touch. We love to have new people each time on there discussing what's happened over the last 3 months. Massive thank you to the Esop Centre and FS Club sponsors. We couldn't do this without you guys. And a reminder that the Newspad, if you don't get to email to you can sign up for that. You can also go online and view them all. There's some great information in there, and there's so much in there. We can't cover it all, but we do like to pull out the burning questions. And finally, a thank you to the audience, but also to the amazing speakers in Jennifer, Matthew and Jonathan. I'm sure you'll all join me in a virtual round of applause. Unfortunately, I haven't got a guitar like Michael or any instruments, but thank you ever so much. You've been brilliant, and I'm looking forward to going out to Mongolia again when lockdown eases, Jonathan. Okay, thank you everyone, and see you all next time. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Darren.